Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start our next session. I advise you all to have your seats. Thank you. So with our coming session, we are continuing our Insights from Africa. We are also having another panel on African collaboration. And it is basically about supply chains. I will start by a quote that was given by Jim Yong King, who was a former president of the World Bank. He said, "In the coming decades, we will see Africa transform from being a development challenge to becoming a global economic powerhouse." This shows how international development practitioners and international decision makers believe in the potential of Africa. Today's panel is about Africa supply chains as a global player. By doing this, we will have great discussion with our panelists, led by our dear colleague Jamal Pine, who is the CEO of BLK Scalp Capital. I would like to invite you, Gamal, to the stage to introduce the panelists. Over to you. Thank you.
Can you all hear me now? Sounds good. Good afternoon, as always. It gives me great honor and great pleasure in being here. As we were saying, my name is Jamal Payne. AIM for me has been one of these special places for the last 2 years, understanding that without culturally curious people, there is no innovation. So first and foremost, I would like to introduce Dr. Brian Matthew, who is the Member of Parliament in the UK, to the stage. Second, I would like to introduce Mr. Kareem Salim, who is the co-founder and chief product officer of Supplied. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Akumbo Akin, the CEO and managing director of Kawai Technologies, to the stage. And lastly, I would like to introduce Dr. Clement, who is the president of Ghana Chambers of Commerce and also Industry, to the stage as well. Not sure. Okay. All right, so let's go and get started. Dr. Brian, with global disruptions like COVID-19 reshaping the manufacturing landscape, what areas or factors will determine its success in this new and unique environment?
Right. Well, hopefully that's now working. Can people hear me okay? Good. Lovely. Thank you. Well, Jamal, thank you very much indeed. Lovely to be here. And I should say, I should start by saying what a pleasure it is to be here at the world's leading investment platform, AIM 25. Now, the global 19 pandemic, along with other global disruptions, such as what we've seen in the US with Trump over the last few weeks and months, has indeed highlighted the vulnerabilities of existing global supply chains, creating opportunities for Africa to play a more significant role. And I'm just going to go through a breakdown of what some of the potential of this is, as well as some of the determining factors. So let's talk a little bit about Africa's potential role, certainly in terms of diversification of supply chains. Global companies are seeking to diversify their supply chains to reduce reliance on single regions, and Africa offers potential alternatives for sourcing raw materials and manufacturing. The abundance of critical minerals essential for technologies like electric vehicles and renewable energy gives Africa a strategic advantage. Growing the manufacturing hub with a young and growing population, Africa has the potential to become a significant manufacturing hub. The African Continental Free Trade Area, as we've just heard, is a crucial driver of this, aiming to boost intra-African trade and create larger, more integrated markets. Increased regionalization. Now, there's a growing trend towards regionalizing supply chains, and Africa can capitalize on this by strengthening its internal trade networks. This can reduce dependence on long-distance supply chains and enhances resilience to global shocks. What are the factors going to be determining that success? Well, I would say number one is infrastructure development, improving transportation, infrastructure, roads, railways, ports, those sorts of things, and energy infrastructure, crucial for efficient supply chains. Investment in digital infrastructure, as we've heard already, is also essential for seamless communication and logistics. And one can mention the M-Pesa system for internet and banking by text message. Industrialization and value addition, moving beyond extraction of raw materials to value-added manufacturing is key. And this requires investments in industry capacity, technology, and skills development. Policy and governance, suitable political environments, transparent governments, and consistent regulatory frameworks are essential for attracting investment. Effective implementation of the AFC, FTA, and other trade agreements is also vital. In terms of skill development, a skilled workforce is essential for manufacturing and technological advancement. Investment in education and vocational training is key to that. Technical adaptation, adopting new technologies like automation and digital supply chain management is also necessary to increase efficiency and competitiveness. In essence, Africa has the potential to become a vital player in the future of global supply chains. However, realizing this potential depends on addressing infrastructure gaps, promoting industrialization, and creating a favorable business environment. And some things to leave you with. Number one, we have to achieve peace. There are too many situations of war in Africa, and we can think of Sudan. The issue of human rights, which are all our rights, are vital. And lastly, protecting our beautiful planet Earth. Remember, she's our mother, and she's also our grandchildren's futures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brian. Absolutely. Kareem, the AFCFTA has essentially been called a game changer for Africa. What strategies should African leaders and businesses adopt to fully harness its power and essentially become a more competitive supply chain across the region?
Thank you, Jamal. It's happy as well to be here. So actually, definitely, indeed, the AFCTA is actually transformative, especially that it's speaking about unity for a continent like Africa. We're speaking here about $2.5 billion in total GDP for the whole continent, which is huge potential. So in terms of achieving the good potential, it lies all in the execution of this. So to be able to utilize the agreement as we seek, leaders need to take some priorities, which is some of them Brian actually spoke of, which is investment in infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and as well as the whole infrastructure for the trade, facilitating labor movement and the human capital movement between the continent, across the continent, as well as empowering SMEs or empowering small-scale companies to be able to adopt that infrastructure. Also, we need to make sure that we're addressing the security instability that we have here in the continent. There is a lot for politics to be tackled and a lot to be resolved along with collaboration and agreements. As well as the full harmonization of regulations and trade policies between the whole countries contributing the agreement. It's a good opportunity to maximize the potential, yet we need to make sure that collaboration is the key. Yes. Collaboration is the key to achieve the best outcome out of all of that. From a business standpoint, I guess it's an opportunity to capture such facilitation or such an agreement to be able to support more or use that potential that is given by governments, and the agreement that we have right now is a big chance to take in terms of thriving and driving potential for creating and driving more innovation using technology, using the human capital, and making sure that we're utilizing our strength as a whole continent all together. Moving labor from a country to country is a huge edge. So if we can provide flexibility as businesses to utilize that, that would provide huge benefit into the quality of creation and the quality of the competition of the supply chain that we can create, which at the end would generate a strong unified supply chain for the whole continent, generating a real competitive value chain here in Africa.
Absolutely. Salim, amazing words as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kubo, I see you down there. With Africa's manufacturing sector set to evolve, how can emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and likewise for machine learning be harnessed to optimize and also produce a more efficient supply chain across the continent?
Thanks for the question, Jamal. I think the power of, or the application of artificial intelligence within the context of Africa, for me, lies more in its power for predicting future outcomes. Mm-hmm. So one good example is for farmers. A lot of farming is still done the old-fashioned way, especially in places like Nigeria, where we still have smallholder farmers. And things which for you and I, we consider simple. When is the best time to plant? Mm-hmm. You check the weather, and you know when it's going to rain. Yep. Things as simple like that are problematic where we come from. So using AI, AI to tell the farmers, all right, for this region, this is the best time to plant, so that your crops grow and they come to market before other places. This is a very simple example of how you can apply modern technology to achieve better outcomes. Or if you take my industry, for instance, we use AI to analyze the currency fluctuations, and that helps us anticipate, okay, it's likely there's going to be a large upswing in the currency movements this week, and therefore we can plan accordingly and we can price accordingly. Those are just a couple of quick examples of how that's applicable to the environment. Another great area is cloud deliveries for like food and restaurant, which is a sector similar to yours. We were talking earlier about cloud kitchens. There's a large company called Chowdeck, which operates in Lagos. And what they do is they use AI to determine very quickly which are the quickest delivery companies to get the orders to the customers in particular areas. Because you have to remember, a lot of our systems are still semi-rudimentary. So you need to be able to integrate and build on top of those systems. The major challenge that we have, though, is infrastructure.
Yes.
The best systems will work only if the infrastructure already exists. Yep. So it's one thing building AI and using machine learning to develop an economy, but do that without the underlying infrastructure layer, and it's a recipe for disaster. So I think we need to still keep in mind that we need to build that first layer of infrastructure, build that first layer of the things that we need to then build this computational economy on top of.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. So this next question is essentially for the entire panels. I'll read it as now. As digital tools and automation reshape economies, how can Africa harness these trends to foster sustainable growth and transform its industries? Brian, I'll start with you.
Switch myself back on again. No, thank you very much indeed, Jamal. Well, there's a number of ways of looking at this, and perhaps if I just look at one particular area, and that's fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. So we need to create an enabling environment for tech startups and innovation hubs, supporting the development of local digital solutions across Africa's specific challenges, encouraging public-private partnerships to drive that digital innovation. So for these sorts of things to work, we've been talking a little bit about agriculture and those digital tools for precision education, agriculture and supply chain management. But there's also the kind of the very, very basic stuff. We know at the moment, for example, climate change is real. We can see that in our fields. Yep. And there are ways in which the use of organic fertilizers, simple organic fertilizers, can hold the moisture. So that when you're planting, you don't just see your crops die because they don't get enough water. Because if you treat your soil in the right way, those plants can survive until the rains come. Yes. So it really is a matter of working with nature rather than against nature.
Love it. Kareem, same question for you. As digital tools and automation reshape economies, how can Africa harness these trends to foster sustainable growth and transform its industries?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Jamal. Yeah, actually, it's mostly related to like public and private sector partnership in facilitating those policies supporting digital utilization. So in order for us to be able to harness that effect of using automation and digital solutions to be able to achieve higher competitiveness of our overall supply chain, I guess it's by supporting more of the practical implementation and the practical usage. I would be a little bit biased, of course, from a startup background, but I would see to make that fast and to make sure that we're implementing a solution really impactful with good scale. We need to facilitate for policies supporting startups to implement innovative solutions, utilizing the digital infrastructure that governments would provide for businesses to be able to achieve competitiveness through a practical implementation, as I mentioned. So it's mostly of using and involving tools and trying to achieve focus for labor. Like we can utilize, there are so many advanced tools right now, and they get even more and more advanced over time. Like the future generations would have better chance if we prepare the foundation really well right now. If you utilized the maximum of that digital infrastructure that we have at the moment to be able to support the supply chain in logistics automation, in even data analysis and using AI, of course, it has massive implementation and massive applications in supply chain specifically. So I guess it's about pushing and pivoting the road for implementation and practical implementation for all the digital tools that we have right now.
Thank you, Kareem. Mr. Kubo, same question for you. As digital tools and automation reshapes economies, how can Africa harness these trends to foster sustainable growth and transform its industries?
Like I was saying earlier, digital tools thrive in structured ecosystems, not chaos. And I'll give you a non-AI or a non-tech example followed by an AI example. The non-tech example would be the Dabawala systems in Mumbai in India, which you might have heard of. It's 130 years old. They deliver 200,000 lunches every single day. They are Six Sigma compliant. These are guys who are mostly illiterate, who can barely read or write, and they're delivering 200,000 meals a day, every day, within a 4-hour window, on time for 130 years. And then you ask yourselves, how do they achieve such a level of efficiency and for so long? But it's actually built on top of a layer of infrastructure which is efficient, which is the railway system. Because they have an efficient railway system, they're able to then build that on top of that to bring about such an interesting enterprise that has lasted well over a century. And similarly, in Nigeria, for example, something quite simple is the payment system. It's all automated now, and you go to your bank, you give your bank your passport and your driver's license and all those details, and that's all digitized now. But what that means is other sectors that need that ID verification information no longer need to collect that from you directly. They can just pull that data because it already exists, which streamlines that process for yet another business. So it's these sort of time condensation strategies which you build upon infrastructure that already is out there and works, helps you build a better business essentially. So we need to find what are those businesses that we've got them working that we can build on top of, and the rest of it is rolling out more infrastructure. We need to put in more broadband, more fiber, more access to satellite connectivity where we don't have in-ground fiber, like the Starlink and so forth. How do we get devices, whether it's Chromebooks or simple hardware into the hands of students, and entrepreneurs and businesses? What are the logistics partners? How do you distribute that so that the nearest logistics partner is close by to make a delivery, like the case of Chowdeck, which the example I gave earlier. Look, at the end of the day, infrastructure is the soil, and technology is what comes out when it's done right.
Yep. Sounds good. Well, thank you, sir. Brian, this next question is for you. In the high-tech sectors like automotive, mobile phones, and then likewise for renewable energy, what advantages can Africa leverage to attract foreign investment, and how can the continent increase its competitiveness in the global supply chain industry?
Jamal, thank you for that question. Africa possesses several key advantages that can be leveraged to attract foreign investment in high-tech sectors like automotive, mobile phones, and renewable energy. These advantages, coupled with strategic initiatives, can significantly enhance the continent's competitiveness. And so let me give you a breakdown. If we look at abundant natural resources, Africa is rich in critical minerals, essential for high-tech industries, including cobalt, lithium, and manganese, which are vital for electric vehicle batteries and renewable energy technologies. The continent's vast renewable energy potential, particularly solar, wind, and hydropower, offers significant opportunities for investment in sustainable energy solutions. Then we look at Africa's growing and youthful population. Africa has the world's fastest growing and youngest population, creating a large and expanding consumer market. This demographic advantage provides a substantial workforce and a growing demand for mobile phones, vehicles, and other high-tech products. So the market is there in Africa, and it needs to be worked on. The FTA creates a single continental market, reducing trade barriers and fostering inter-African trade. And this expanded market enhances the attractiveness of investing in Africa by providing access to a larger consumer base. Then if we look at increasing focus on renewable energy, the global demand for renewable energy is rising, and Africa's abundant renewable resources position offers it as a key part in this whole transition. Investments in renewable energy products can contribute to sustainable development and create new economic opportunities. So there is all this stuff, and it's, the future is out there, and it's golden, and Africa needs to grab it.
Thank you, Brian. Kareem, this next question is for you, and essentially I want you to kind of tie this into the great production work that you're doing over at Supplied, right? With your experience in leading a tech-enabled supply chain startup, what role do you see emerging technologies playing in developing a highly skilled workforce that essentially can meet the growing demands of global supply chains?
Yeah, it's mostly based on what we discussed earlier. Like it's allowing, like utilizing technology in the life of hand labor or labor that we have right now in Africa, which we all know that. We have talented labor. We have, as we always call, we have human capital in Africa. People that are, we have massive amounts of population, and so many of them are already youth and ready to work and able to that. So being or utilizing digital solutions would allow them to focus on what they should be doing, like utilize digital solutions for automation, for scaling redundant and usual work with digital tools and digital solutions, being able to scale the power of the talents in Africa. I see this impacting generations and generations and creating opportunities for the future generation to be able to learn better and get more practical example and practical experience with faster pace, with better potential, and like passing on the knowledge of digital utilization across generations until we reach the moment of having Africa as a leader in workforce, as we all wish. So utilizing and supporting all the digital tools that we have right now, and is supporting countries and governments and the youth to be able to utilize all of these tools is really important to increase the capabilities of our workforce.
Thank you, Kareem. Mr. Kubo, I really want you to kind of talk about the main work and some great work in which you're doing over at Kawai Technologies as I tie this next question for you itself. What role do you see for African startups and essentially tech innovators in driving the continent's high-tech manufacturing forward, and how can they overcome existing barriers to growth?
Thanks. I think if I was to sum it up in a line, it's about execution over abstraction. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, no matter how great the idea, if it's not executed right, there's no forget growth. There's nothing. So it's all about execution. And what is the difference between a startup and a regular company, a small business, or an SME? The difference is with an SME, the risks are known, which is why typically you can just take it to a bank and you'll get financing. But with a startup, you're typically operating in a space where the risks are really unknown. And that's why the potential to scale is really infinite. But the difference between what does scale and what doesn't is execution, usually. And what we're looking for from the entrepreneurs and the young people across Africa is go and find those ideas that haven't been tried yet, that haven't been tested yet. Go out there and solve those infrastructure problems. Go there and find those gaps in the market and come up with an idea on how to solve those. You do that enough times and you're going to see explosive growth in pockets in different areas. Lorry did that in Kenya with their trucking and logistics system, and that worked really well. Which brings me to the next point, really, is because it works in one market does not mean it's going to work in every market. Lorry did amazingly well in Nairobi and in Kenya, but it was practical disaster when they tried it in Nigeria because it's an entirely different market, different set of rules. So sometimes it might be that you do something that works really well in one market, and what you should then do is not necessarily jump markets. It might be to collaborate with another company who's doing it really well in another market. That might be how you get growth. It might be about doing it the Lego way. You build up the bricks to make a large entity a different way. I think that's it. My other comment would be, look, I think Africa in aggregate still contribute somewhere in the 2 to 3% of GDP, of global GDP. We need to get out of this rut that we're in. And while I believe strongly in technology and AI and machine learning and all these things, I think, and scale, sometimes it's about, look, don't think about creating necessarily a business that's serving 1 million people. Sometimes it's about create a business that serves 100 people really, really well, and then create another business that serves another 100 people really, really well. I'd rather have 1,000 businesses, each with 10 employees, each serving 50 customers, than have one business, which it's a stroke of luck really, that's serving 100,000. Get enough of these small businesses, and you have an economy. You have growth, and that's what we need to be looking for.
Thank you, sir. So this last question is for the entire panel. And as you guys prepare to answer this question, I also want you to think about what would you tell your younger self, right, as entrepreneurs in this sector, okay? As Africa looks to the future of global supply chains, what advice would you offer to young African entrepreneurs looking to disrupt traditional industries and also bring innovative solutions to the marketplace? Brian?
I'm going to cut to the chase,
Okay.
if I may, and I'm going to say, number one, be adaptable and resilient, because the world is changing.
Yes.
And all of us need to change with it. Focus on solutions that are both innovative and sustainable. So think about those things that can last. Think about those things that help to work with nature, not against it. Build strong networks that continuously learn. So, all the time be learning and trying to make that work for the future. And lastly, focusing on those areas that young African entrepreneurs can play a vital role in shaping the future of global supply chains and driving economic growth across the continent. So think about the whole continent. Think about the previous session where we were talking about how various African nations can work together, not against each other. And really, let's make that work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kareem, same question for you. As Africa looks to the future of global supply chains, what advice would you give to young African entrepreneurs looking to disrupt traditional industries and bring innovative solutions to the marketplace?
Yeah, sure. Actually, it will be like focus on solving a real world local problem that you face and that people are facing. So actually it starts from there, like defining the problem that you would like to solve, because we always see that entrepreneurs trying to use technology while it might not be the solution for the problem. So ideally find a problem, find a local real world problem, and utilize your network, utilize your skill set, try to expand, try to know better, learn. It's a long and enjoyable but hectic journey of learnings and failures and experimentation. So utilize initiatives that we might have, like the African Continental Free Trade Area right now, to expand in terms of labors, partnerships, mergers, investors. Try to increase the impact of your solution. First, start with validating the solution. Start to find like a product market fit, if they call it, for example. Find people interested in the solution or people facing the problem that you defined. Try to verify that. Try to implement the solution. Make sure that it's feasible, scalable, and then utilize all the initiatives, as we mentioned, to increase the impact of it. So don't get tired across the journey. It's tiring. It's an optimism game at the end. It relies mostly on being optimistic, being a very, very high believer in achieving a certain solution. So be driven with that always until you increase the impact of whatever you're solving.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Mr. Kobo, same question for you. As Africa looks to the future of global supply chains, what advice would you offer to young African entrepreneurs looking to disrupt traditional industries and bring innovative solutions to the marketplace?
The best businesses solve problems. It's really as simple as that. And it's how do we get these entrepreneurs to build businesses that are solving the problems that we find in our respective environments. So my advice is don't reinvent the wheel. And we're seeing this a lot in Nigeria. I'm sure everyone has heard of or seen a fintech. We've got 1,000 different ways to pay for a bag of chips. So I think we need to calm down on the payments companies as one example. Once a solution, unless you can do it better, that's debatable. But find a problem, find an innovative way to solve that problem, and then double down on that. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. We are constantly saying, Africa is rising. Look, it's not rising anymore. It's risen. Africa is now delivering, and we need to just deliver more and consistently. That's really it.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir. Before I open up the floor, of course, I want to ensure that obviously the panelists, you guys have any final words? Brian, I'll start with you.
Well, I think, we need to think about the future. We need to think about where Africa goes from here. And essentially, I mentioned at the beginning, there are problems in Africa. We know there are problems in Africa. But we need to solve those. And if, number one, we can think about the peace in the continent, we can think about doing away with war. There's a wonderful expression that says, if you trade together, you don't fight each other. And I think we can learn from that. That's learning from history, isn't it, really? So let's see trade flourish and let's see the continent flourish. That's my main lesson.
Thank you, sir. Kareem?
Yeah, there's huge potential in Africa. There's an expression that we call need is the mother of innovation or invention. Yeah. So we know for a fact that we have huge inefficiencies. We have so many inefficiencies, of course, in related to supply chain, especially in distribution, in manufacturing, logistics, and everything. But here comes the opportunity. So my word would be utilize that as the opportunity. It's our time now. It's a time that we utilize that. It's a time that we take opportunities and start with innovative solutions moving forward to drive our continent to the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Mr. Kubo.
So my closing points would be what I said earlier is build businesses that are solving problems. I mean, it's really that simple. Don't reinvent the wheel. Find a problem, typically an infrastructure-related problem in Africa, and find a unique way to deliver on that and to solve that problem. And it's almost guaranteed that the business will be successful. The second is build more small businesses. I'm all for technology, I'm all for artificial intelligence and its application and growth, but I am more for building businesses, build more SMEs, build more sustainable family and close network type businesses, because these are the pillars of every community. I think we need to focus more on that.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to open up the floor. Anyone has any questions, by all means, please don't be scared to stand up, and not all at once. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, there you go. All right, perfect. Cool. Amari Oliver from Brooklyn, New York. I have a question. So one of the a few of you pretty much said this similar things. So my question is, how do we leverage the talent? Because one of the challenges, as you were saying, you want people to build businesses that we really need. We don't need some of the same other businesses, but we have a lot of talent in the U.S. particularly that has a lot of skill sets, around some of the things that you were mentioning. So as we're talking about this younger audience on the continent of Africa, this younger demographic, how do you ensure that they have the skills to even begin to address and apply the knowledge that they need to do some of the things that you've mentioned? Because that's the new gap. So there seems to be also an education and learning gap that could be easily bridged through the right partnerships with both corporate individuals as well as the educational institutions to ensure, as we're building this next phase of products, services, what have you on the continent, that they have the skills to build the right things.
Can I take that one?
Yes, sir.
I think it's a great question. One of the unicorns that came out of Nigeria a few years ago was Andela, and Andela literally addressed that exact question. Upskill young engineers and coders and developers to a point where they are then competent enough to then place with international companies. Almost like a young Wipro. I don't know if you're familiar with Wipro, the Indian tech company. And they then go out and start working with Microsoft and Facebook and Google and what have you around the world. Separate to Andela, we've got a very thriving software ecosystem, especially in the southwest of Nigeria. My personal opinion, though, is the experience part of your comment is true. My personal opinion is that a lot of that talent is at the, should I say, early to medium level developer stage, and they don't have enough experience to move higher than that. But over time, that will change. Our government has a 3MTT program, which is to get, I think, 3 million coders within 4 or 6 years. So there is, concerted effort to develop that talent in this space, in the tech and software development space. But you can apply that to other sectors as well.
Kareem?
Okay, so in my part, it's mostly related to one benefit of Africa being huge, that we're 55 countries. So in simple words, like we have experience in everywhere. Like someone out there knows something unique, So utilizing initiatives like that we're discussing right now, for example, the AFC-TA, being or give freedom for young generations to roam around across the continent, across countries, because, for example, we might have talents in Egypt related to a specific segment or a sector, and Nigeria would have talents elsewhere, Ghana, Ethiopia, and everything. So the benefit of freedom there would make sure that we increase the quality of the talents and the young generations, and making sure that they're getting experience better and better. The good benefit as well, Africans right now they're exploring the world. Like we've been in all over the world. Like we have taking huge responsibilities in Europe and USA. So regenerating or resharing the knowledge that we captured back in Africa, that would guarantee that we're getting the best outcome or getting better talents across the generations moving forward.
Nice. Brian?
Thank you, and yes, it was a great question. I'm going to give it a slightly different twist, though. I've spent many years in Africa. I'm a bit of an old Africa hand. And I think back to my time when I was in Malawi. And I was part of a campaign looking at the national sanitation policy for the country. And as part of that, we visited a lot of schools. And sadly, many of those schools were not in a good situation. But schools are where you start. But one of the schools was head and shoulders above everywhere else. And you know what the difference was? It came down to one thing. It came down to, and ladies, it's great to see some ladies here, it came down to having a really good head teacher who was a lady. And she installed discipline in that school. She made sure that the the toilets and stuff were clean. She made sure that there was a library where kids could come and borrow books, and they would return them, and they could then be lent out again. So it's about installing discipline. It's about installing hope for tomorrow. And I think if you can do that, then the youth of Africa will find a way forward. But it's got to have that discipline. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any additional questions? If not, I want to first and foremost thank the panelists for an amazing conversation for this afternoon. As always, it's an honor and a pleasure being able to have great conversations with thought leaders and also some amazing SMEs as well. Thank you all.
Thank you.